It is Albert Jew, Invite Side Block E, and today the question we're trying to answer is what constitutes a healthy river, or what makes a healthy river. So what I wanted to do to explain this is kind of compare kind of what an unhealthy river is as well as a healthy river. So I'm going to use the Willamette River in Portland, Oregon as an example. So Willamette River is it's in kind of the urban area. It's basically in the middle of downtown Portland, and it is a really dirty river. And we're going to kind of go over the things that would make this an unhealthy river, per se. First, it has low flow. Basically, the water doesn't flow very quickly, and so there's not a lot of aerating going on in the river itself, and so the water is not getting its necessary oxygen. The color itself is blue. Like, if you look at it on a sunny day, it's blue, but then after it rains, it gets kind of brown and disgusting, like all rivers do. And it's just a large river, and it's surrounded by kind of industrial factories and kind of the urban downtown area. Essentially, in the 1920s, what happened is everyone was dumping their waste there, so it became kind of like an open sewer, and there's still kind of after effects of that going on today. The years of like industrial pollution from the factories that produced petroleum and lead, and there were also some shipbuilding factories, etc., put in pesticides, PCBs, and heavy metals into the river, which is definitely not good for the things living in the river and for the river itself. And so, yeah, essentially it splits downtown in half, so it's surrounded by all those cars and pollution, and just the overall busyness of the downtown area contributes to that pollution. And on top of that, all the vegetation that would have been next to the river, all the trees that provide the nutrients and all the bushes, just all the vegetation has been wiped out completely and has been replaced by buildings and factories and skyscrapers and whatnot. And also the climate of the area has caused flooding in the past. The Willamette River has been famous for a couple of pretty big floods in the past, not the recent past, but that could have contributed highly to erosion, and we know erosion is not good for rivers either. So if you kind of flip that around, we can kind of find out what a healthy river would be. And a healthy river would have a flow, a current that could successfully aerate the stream. So, you know, rapids and ripples every once in a while, because the stream needs that sort of oxygen to aerate it, but not too fast as to cause erosion on the surface of on the bottom of the river, because erosion is not good for the river's health. The water shouldn't stink, of course. There shouldn't be any trash or dead animals in it. If there are dead animals, that means that it's not a fit place to survive for an animal. And obviously, trash and smell constitute that it's kind of not in a good environment. There should be vegetation along the bank. The reason there should be vegetation is the trees shade the water so it doesn't get too hot when the sun's out, and on top of that, when leaves fall into the river, it's a primary source of nutrients and a primary food source for both things in the water and the water itself. Furthermore, there should be an abundance of native organisms, so organisms that usually live there and that are adapted to that ecosystem, including ones that are sensitive. What it means to be sensitive is a sensitive organism can't survive under, just really general conditions. It needs to survive in kind of specific conditions, and it can kind of die out easily if the environment gets a little bit hostile. So if you have sensitive organisms living in that river, it means that the river is in top condition, that it's healthy. So to apply that to our trip to Tanchon, we went to a little tributary of the creek, or of the river itself, and the water flow seemed to be pretty good. It wasn't too fast, and it definitely wasn't too slow. There were rapids every once in a while, and on top of that, there was a lot of vegetation around the river, lots of trees, lots of shade, no sun really getting through. One thing though is that the bottom of the river itself, part of it was cemented over, and the other part, it didn't really seem natural. It seemed sort of man-made, so that could definitely affect the native organisms living there, changing that ecosystem. And while not a lot of organisms were found, the ones that we did discover were semi-sensitive to sensitive, so that means that even if we didn't find an abundance of organisms, that the river is in pretty good health, because we're still finding the organisms that need really good conditions to survive. So we're thinking, even though Tanchon is surrounded by kind of an urban area, The tributary that we went to was a little bit, off in the shade, off in kind of a little secluded area, and we think that the city is doing a good job of keeping that part of nature preserved. So yeah.